This is a training camp. This is a tournament where you go away. You don't have, the luxury of having your home support. Specifically when you think about Euro 2020, you kind of have that 12th man the entire time. The entire nation was behind you. These are alien territories, and you need those players. My answer would probably be, I think Jordan Pickford is one of them. He clearly shows it all the time. I think this is actually a massive reason. I know, and obviously you have a lot of input here, but the Harry Maguire situation, I think that's partly why also he's here as well. He is, for better or worse, I would imagine a very good teammate. I'm always thinking about the spine of a team. So you need those voices all over, at the back, in the midfield, and up front. And, you mentioned Conor Cody and obviously Harry Kane, leading the way up front. So there's a lot of good voices here. It's all about coming collectively and not forgetting, Rob, that this is also, there's a few young players in here that are probably going to need some help. Let's keep going with these questions. Some good ones, by the way. Thank you, everybody, as we talk about. Don't worry, we're going to get to it. I know you want to know, obviously, US, England, who wins it? Well, from a bias perspective, I can already tell you what I think was going to happen, but let's keep going here. Realistic expectations for England at the World Cup. Rob, I just mentioned, recently what they've done in tournaments, the final Euro 2020. Gareth Southgate took this team to the semifinals of the World Cup in Russia. That was the furthest since Sir Bobby Robson did it, back in 1990. So, there are some good elements here, but it's 2022. This group may not be as simple as they may think. And then depending on who they face in the knockout stages, it could get tricky very indeed. What are realistic expectations, you think, for the Three Lions and Gareth Southgate?
I think after reaching the semi-finals in Russia in 2018 and then the final of the Euros in 2021, that they really should be looking to win it. I don't think it's particularly outrageous to look at a team that have achieved that over the last 4 years and say that this is a team that really should be looking to win it. That said, this is a much tougher tournament than the Euros. The group is very tight. They're going to do well to get out of that. They really need to top that group. Get through the second round, and then you start running into the big boys in the quarterfinals, and you start looking at the likes of, is it going to be sort of Holland or Argentina or teams like that? Were they to get to beyond the quarterfinals, I think that would be a good tournament. I don't think Gareth Southgate would admit that because he wants to win it. He will be saying that he's there to win it and he wants to get to the final, given what they've done in the past. But I think if England can get beyond the quarterfinals, they will have done very, very well. And that's not to do with any deficiencies that England may have, although that they head into the tournament on a poor run of form, really, in what's happened in the last couple of months. Just the strength of the other teams, the likes of Argentina, France, Brazil, these squads are absolutely stacked with world-class players, and they're going to do very, very well to get to the last four, I think.
Yeah, I've said it from the very beginning, Rob, to some of your points that you just mentioned. The thing about this World Cup, more so than any other World Cup, I think the line, the difference between the true World Cup champion contenders, right? Brazil, Argentina, France, England, you can include in there, Germany, of course, Spain, and everybody else. This is the thinnest it's ever been. There's quality absolutely everywhere. You have to top this group, because if you top the group, England, then, I'm not saying there's obviously easier, harder matches, anything can happen in knockout stages, but then you start thinking about you can face either a Senegal, possibly without Sadio Mane, a repeat against Denmark, and you wouldn't have to really face a real tough competitor till later. So you have to top this group, I think. I think that would be the expectations for England. Let's talk about the midfielders and the attackers, because we talked a lot about the defense, and here they are on the screen. Jude Bellingham, Conor Gallagher, Jordan Henderson, Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice. Pretty remarkable to see a few names there. Conor Gallagher, a nice little surprise for Chelsea fans, of course. But Rob, give me your thinking here. James Ward-Prowse is not in here. Calvin Phillips has only played 30 seconds of football. Talk to me about this midfield side.
Yeah, Conor Gallagher is a little bit of a surprise. He's not played regularly for Chelsea this season, although he has played a bit more regularly very, very recently. Calvin Phillips, it is a surprise in one sense, given that he's been injured, and even before his injury, wasn't really playing for City. I think before the Carabao Cup game against Chelsea, he played 14 minutes for City this season, which tells you that that he just not really played at all. I think everyone else really is worthy of their place. I think the one crucial selection issue that Southgate is going to have to solve is whether he picks Jude Bellingham from the start. If we're looking at Gareth Southgate, who in the past has appeared quite cautious as England manager, that maybe you pair Jordan Henderson and Declan Rice in midfield. I think England fans would love to see Jude Bellingham in there.
Would you start him? I would start Jude Bellingham.
I think so. I mean, he's formed for Borussia Dortmund this season, particularly in the Champions League.
One of the best players in the world, and
yeah.
never mind young players. I would start him from the get-go. I
think he should. He certainly deserves it, and I think that's going to be one of the selection issues for that first game that England fans are really going to look at. If Gareth Southgate picks Jordan Henderson and Declan Rice, they're going to expect quite a cautious approach to the rest of the World Cup. Southgate can really set a tone in that first game by picking Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham, despite his age, his relative lack of experience on the international stage, he deserves to play in that first game.
Yeah, 100%. Just some stats here, by the way, courtesy of our great team in the background here. The most goals and assists from English players in the Premier League since the start of 2021-22 season. Harry Kane, obviously, with 38. James Maddison, 28 for Saka. Tony, 27. Mount, 25. Jared Bowen, who's not in here, 24. And Phil Foden, 23. Let's talk about the attackers now to wrap this up. Phil Foden, not a surprise. Jack Grealish, not a surprise. James Maddison, we've talked about. Marcus Rashford, Rob Dawson, Bukayo Saka, Raheem Sterling, and Callum Wilson, whose recent form for Newcastle means he's in. Ivan Toney's not there. Tammy Abraham is not there. Thoughts on this attacking side, the attacking options for Southgate?
Yeah, I mean, aside from Maddison, the biggest surprise probably is Callum Wilson. Not that he hasn't played well for Newcastle. Newcastle have done very well this season. Wilson scored 6 goals in 10 games already this season. He was probably up against Ivan Toney at Brentford, who scored 8 in 13. I think the big issue probably before Southgate selected the squad was Wilson's injury record. His injury record is not great, and he's already had one spell on the sidelines this season. England fans may look at this and think, well, Kane's going to start every game anyway. Wilson isn't going to have to play that often. Well, judging by Antonio Conte's comments about Kane after the Carabao Cup tie with Nottingham Forest, he's suggesting that Kane is already tired. And that's before the World Cup even kicks off. So if you take those comments on face value, can you expect Kane to play 90 minutes every single game in Qatar? Well, probably not. So Wilson is going to have to play. Southgate will just hope that Wilson holds up injury-wise. I suppose that if something was to happen to Wilson, he would probably look at the squad and think, well, you've got Marcus Rashford in there who likes to play on the left-hand side of a front three to cut in on his right foot, but who can also play as a centre-forward and has played as a centre-forward this season for Man United in the absence of Cristiano Ronaldo on occasion. So there are options there. And it's not to say that Wilson doesn't deserve his place in the squad. He certainly does. He's done the business this season for Newcastle, scoring 6 goals. I think even Ivan Toney, can think of himself as a little bit unlucky. He's also
systematic, isn't it, Rob? Don't you think? Because you mentioned something there before we talk about the others and we wrap up here. Thank you, everybody. By the way, Tammy Abraham, Southgate said, and I'm reading this quote because it has a lot to do with what we're about to discuss here. But Southgate said, Tammy's had a poor run of scoring form at the wrong time. Form could be more important. That's very interesting from Gareth Southgate talking about form, because we can look all over this squad and there's a lot of players here that have not had good form, and if you want to base it on form alone, I think that could be interesting and complex, and it might be coming back to bite Gareth Southgate at the end. But to your point about Callum Wilson, the issue for me is that if something happens to Harry Kane, it's not just about holding form, but holding that ball. Harry Kane is very good as well as bringing players in from the outside. Callum Wilson likes to play off the last defender. It's a bit different. So to your point about Marcus Rashford and other players, they might have to do jobs they don't naturally like to do. That's that to me is the key. Let's wrap this up by any other thoughts on the attacking side. Marcus Rashford, I mean, it's great to see him. I mean, if we're talking about form, recently he's been good. Phil Foden, of course, in there as well. Raheem Sterling. Is there any? Ivan Toney is a damn shame, Rob. But is there anybody else? Do you see here that I'm happy with this? Do you see the goals coming from this attacking lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I think the squad just shows that Gareth Southgate's got more options up front than he has at the back. I mean, we've not even spoken about Jadon Sancho. Jadon Sancho's been nowhere near this squad. You're talking about a £75 million winger who's playing for Man United. That just shows you the lack of speculation or talk around Sancho being in the squad just shows you that there are far more options for Southgate up front than there are at the back. It was never expected that, say, Harry Maguire would be absent, even though he's not played for Man United at all. Southgate has just got far more options up front than he has at the back. And he's probably mentioned the form of Tammy Abraham, because form, when you're picking amongst a big pool of attackers, form does come into it, which means that Wilson, which means that Maddison are both in, but at the back, it means that Walker's in and Maguire's in, because he just hasn't got those same options.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to read everybody a stat here. From our own ESPN UK, Fikayo Tomori has had more successful tackles than any other English centre-back in Europe's top 5 leagues since the start of last season, not even this season. But apparently he's not good enough. I'm going to beat the Fikayo Tomori drum until it kills me. But there you have it. The England squad, the final 26, is set for the World Cup in Qatar. And England, have a group to deal with, including, of course, the US, Wales, and, of course, Iran. Very quickly, predictions on England-USA. What do you think, Rob?
I think it's going to be very tight with 1 goal in it, England to win 1-0, because the US just don't score goals.
Yep, I agree. And that's what happens when you don't select Ricardo Pepi, USMNT fans. But there you have it. The England team is set for the World Cup. We'll have to find out just how far they indeed go in the tournament.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.